From the older systems to the newer systems, they've made basically 12 changes. The first change is that the handle is now on the front side, which makes it easier to do our clamping and drilling all at the same time. The second change is they've made the dust port swivel and they've made it smaller. They made it smaller so it doesn't impede on the adjustability of the jig. On the old system, you actually have to pop off the dust port to get to that knurl knob to make the changes. We've also removed the knurl knob and we're going from the knurl knob to a quick release pin. The quick release pin allows us to adjust the jig in a matter of seconds. So if I want to go to 3/4, there's 3/4. Half inch, there's half inch. Inch and a half, there's inch and a half. The biggest change of all, though, is back here on the toggle clamp. It's a self-adjusting ratcheting style clamp. In other words, the setup process is very simple. If you want to do 3/4 inch stock, the very first step is to open up the handle, push down the gray button and move the clamp all the way back. Second is to actually adjust the jig for the stock. There's 3/4 inch. Third, place the stock into the jig. The fourth step would be to push the handle down, push the toggle until it touches. The next step is real easy. This is how we set the pressure of the clamp. Raise and hold the handle, take your thumb or finger and move the clamp forward 2 clicks. 1, 2, and you're ready to drill. It's that simple. Now the best part about this new clamp on the back side is that it's self-adjusting. If we add the thickness of a dollar bill to the bottom side, it's going to basically self-adjust for that thickness. If we fold the dollar bill in half, which is 8 thousandths, it still clamps. If we fold it in half again, it's 16 thousandths, it still clamps. You fold it one more time and we're at 32 thousandths of an inch, and it still clamps. Now the reason why that measurement is so important, if you're working in plywood and solid wood, that's the difference between the two. The clamp is auto adjusting for variations in our stock. On our older style jig, you actually have to stop and readjust the toggle clamp. Over here, it does it automatically. In other words, we can take a piece of plywood and put it into the jig without readjusting the clamp. If we take out the plywood and put a piece of solid wood in there, a piece of MDF, we can do it without adjusting the clamp. Now the last thing that we changed on there is, whoops, the new jig comes with a built-in stop lock. It works on the left and it works on the right side. You basically just drop that in, make your adjustment to line up your hole pattern. If I'm doing 2-inch wide stock, we use A and B hole. We set that up against the stop. We can drill the first 2 holes, turn it around, up against the stop, and drill the second 2 holes without having to worry about our positioning. All in all the new features that you see there on the new K5 make it faster, simpler, and easier to use.
So I was in my shop one afternoon and I was doing hollow forms and Christmas ornament globes and stuff like that, and I'm hollowing away, and it occurred to me that it would be a whole lot less tedious when I was hollowing stuff if if I didn't have to stop and measure all the time, because I'm in here hollowing, I'm hollowing blind. So I said to myself, well, you know, all the big captive hollowing systems, they all use lasers. Why do they use a laser? Well, because as long as you can see the laser beam, then you know where you're cutting. So if I can see that laser beam right on the cutting edge, now even when the cutter is gone, the laser beam tells me how close I am to the edge or how close I am to the bottom. If I want to set it for my final wall thickness, I just move the laser over a little bit, and then the distance between the laser and the cutter is my wall thickness. So now I want the laser beam to just skim the edge of my vessel, and that sets my predetermined wall thickness. Here's the way it works. It'll mount on the ferrule or the handle of any lathe tool that you own. I happen to have this on an Easy Wood tool, and I've also already done a lot of work here. So we'll go right in here, and then when I cut, I know exactly what I'm doing. So I just hollow away. This will give you an idea what it's like. See that laser? All I do is just push the tool around, follow the profile of the edge, because on the inside, we're doing exactly the same thing, and that's my wall thickness right there. So the chances of me coming through the side are not nearly as great. It's called a Turner's Laser Guide. It's brand new. Coolhammers.com for more information.
So how'd you end up making longboards?
Started riding them. Buddy sent one out into traffic. Told him I could build him a new one. Turned into a hobby. And then it turned into what you're looking at today.
It's pretty cool, man. Where are you at again?
Baraboo, Wisconsin.
Awesome. Hope to keep seeing you here.
Yeah.
So they commissioned me to make a series of 4 guitars out of used whiskey barrels, and so they sent me 6 whiskey barrels from Ireland to disassemble and figure out how to retrain the bent wood, make it straight and flat and stable again. And then I worked with Justin in the design, and we came up with those guitars. But in that project, there's always pieces of wood left over. And this is some small pieces that I used to put together a ukulele that was left over from the whiskey barrel. So it still has the Bushmills, Bonavere, Bischoff stamp on the back. And even has some of the whiskey barrel from the outside there, and up on the peg head here, this is still the whiskey barrel stuff. And then when you sand off the outside, then the wood comes and shows through, and that's what this back and sides is.
Cool, thank you.
Alright, this is our 5500 model. I'm going to show you a little bit how to adjust it, how to spray with it. It's a very simple system. There are only two controls on the gun. The shape of the fan is controlled by the air cap, which clicks into position. The amount of fluid coming out controlled by the knob on the back. The airflow is a constant, never changes. So here we go. Right now I'm on a vertical pattern. All it takes is one click over. Gives me my detail pattern. One more click over. Gives me my horizontal pattern. So that's how you determine which direction you're going to spray. And with that detail pattern, I have a lot of control. If I cut down on my flow rate and move in tight to the project, I can put a line right where I want it. Every time I increase that flow rate, it's going to get a little bit bigger. And when it gets up to about an inch, you'll see that it starts to break up around the outside edge. That's an indication the settings aren't right. I'm going to go back to my fan pattern. I'm going to cut down on my flow a little bit. Spray out a nice clean pattern. And again, as I increase that flow rate, that'll grow. Alright, I want to show you how I adjust the gun so that I'm not getting spit. The idea that the airflow is a constant means that you can actually overwhelm the air with fluid. If you've got too much fluid in the air, it's not going to atomize properly. So I want to show you what that looks like first. First of all, I use my detail setting on the gun, which is the 45-degree angle. I open up my fluid flow a couple of turns, and I spray out a dot. Now this is what you don't want. What I want to see here is a nice round pattern. You notice how this is kind of egg-shaped? This is also spit all the way around the outside of this. That means I've got too much fluid in the airflow and it can't atomize properly. All I'm going to do is change the amount of paint that I've got going into the air. So I'm just going to cut that down. I'm going to spray another dot. That's a lot better, but you can still see there's some spit up here. Spread out a little bit too much. It's still a little egg-shaped. I'm going to cut that down a little bit more, spray again. This is a nice pattern here. See how round it is as compared to the others, and that there's no spit around it. If you can get real tight in here, you'd see that it's really fine atomization, really tiny droplets. That's a perfect pattern for spraying on your furniture.
What does that mean? I need to put the same amount of wood on both sides. If you expose...
This is Aqua Coat, water-based clear grain filler. Comes in a gel form. Dries crystal clear, you can see. It's water-based, easy water cleanup. Put it on thoroughly. After you stain, scrape it to a thin coat, put the excess back in the container. Let it dry for 20 minutes, half hour. Lightly sand it, 320 grit. Reapply another coat if it didn't fill the grain to your needs. This is a sample with no coats on it. This is a sample of one coat, and this is a sample of two coats. And you can see that it filled the pores, and it did not alter the color of the wood. Again, it's Aqua Coat clear grain filler.
Value of this process. That's what makes this such a unique artistic experience. I truly believe that these tools are the equivalent of the artist's paintbrush. And this is your artist's canvas. And though it is a very subjective process, I'm going to share with you what I believe are some good habits, good techniques associated with this process of sculpting and carving so that you can have good success. The first tool I want you to see is the Arbortech. This is their turbo plane. I think they're here, right? You guys seen them here? They're often here. They're just grinding away, making a bunch of sawdust over there. I don't think they realize how good a tool this is. It's a really good tool for actually shaping and sculpting parts and pieces. I'm going to show you quickly how fast I can make a pile of sawdust out of this, because it's a good quick cutter. Shooting it at you here. Right? That's pretty good. I can hog out this seat in a matter of minutes. I used to do more traditional techniques when it came to carving out a seat. I have no problem with that. You know, there's a moment in time when you might be in the romance of the chiseling process, or the scorps, or the ads, or whatever it may be, some traditional techniques. It used to take me a whole day. This seems to be a fairly intimidating tool for people, right? You grab this thing, you're hacking at it, I just make a pile of sawdust in my beautiful, curly cherry or quilted maple or whatever it may be. What I want to show you is that it's about technique. Everything is technique. From a power tool to a hand tool, it's all about technique. If I just start arbitrarily hacking at this thing, I'm going to make a pile of sawdust real fast. I want to gain some control. And the first thing is not to be intimidated by this tool. No, I'm going to show you that it doesn't mean that you have to have this death grip on this tool, right? You can actually have a fairly relaxed approach. If you were up to bat, right, and you were trying to make a swing to hit the ball, if you have this really tight grip, your body's tense, are you gonna make contact? Maybe a foul ball, right? You need to have a little bit more of a relaxed approach in your stance, and a little bit more follow through on the swing. Same thing here, right? If I want to hold this thing in fear of it, I'm going to really not be able to do well with it. I want to relax my shoulders, open up my body stance, and have a little bit of rhythm and motion to this cut. But also note how lightweight I can hold this tool. I'm not necessarily recommending this, but I'm holding this very lightweight. It's not yanking and pulling and grabbing. So an average grip will give me a little bit more technique, a little bit more fluidity in this cut. And I want to encourage you to get a rhythm and a motion to it. There's a sense of movement in my body. Having a wide stance and an open posture allows me to have a little bit of fluidity in this cut, right?
Handles that you can use to rotate or skew. In this case, I'm just going to shrink this down a little, try not to rotate it, and see if we can get that ray flake pattern to look a little more life-size.
It is not 3/4. When you take 2 pieces of 3/4 inch plywood, it is not 1.5 inches. It's about a 1/16 less than that. And so the math starts to kind of fall apart here a little bit when using plywood. Now I'm going to show you how to do it on plywood, but I'll show you how you kind of make adjustments to the math we're using, because the material you're using is not quite as thick as it would be if we were strictly using real math, okay? When I use hardwood, I'll make it whatever thickness I want, and I'll mill it to 1/2 inch. That way I know I've got exactly what I want. I also don't see any difference in strength between doing something out of a solid wood as I do a plywood. They're about the same. A lot of people will say that, well, plywood won't flex as much when there's strain in it. These cabinets are only 2 feet deep. And when you stand something up on its side, if it's even 3 or 4 inches high, you can stand in the middle of that hardwood or plywood. You're not going to make either one of them go. So the plywood and the hardwood are about the same when it comes to that. No big difference. And the other thing is, the feeling is that solid wood has a tendency to warp or twist or bow when it's in there, where plywood won't, and that's not true at all. If you were here earlier, I told you when you buy your wood, make sure it's flat. Make sure you sticker your wood so it stays flat. When you put it in a form like this box, air and moisture can get to all 6 sides of this evenly. When it does expand and contract, it's going to do it evenly, and it's going to stay that way. But if you put something that's already warped in there, it's definitely not going to be good, whether it's hardwood or whether or not it's plywood. So I'm kind of a big fan of hardwood. Nothing wrong with plywood. I just like the hardwood part of it. If you are going to use plywood, please use the 1/2 inch plywood that's called multi-ply plywood. They used to call this a long time ago Baltic birch. or what they call finished birch, F-I-N-N-I-S-H. It has 9 plies in here and a 1/2 inch thick piece. If you use regular construction grade 1/2 inch plywood, it has 3 or 5, and it's full of voids. This has got so many plies so perfectly lined up that if you use just lacquer or shellac or something on it, you'll have a perfect light, dark, light, dark, light, dark across the front. No reason to put a strip of wood on this or anything. It actually looks pretty cool. Okay, and to me, it's a lot more structurally stable. That cheaper plywood, the construction grade plywood, the only 2 good parts are the inside and outside skin. There are voids on the inside that have been covered by something, but they are actually...
They had been on the cactus system for a while. This came out. Ron Brown down here came up with it. They tried to try this out. And it actually works quite well. Okay. Looks like it's made with battery, but it's a little bit. So you can see that light. The light stream out there. Okay. That's my thickness. That's just about right for what I want. With this tool, you have to stay on the flat part of the rectangular shaft. You don't want to be on the good side. So tighten everything down. Now you can see the light show up well. So all I have to do is watch that light move out towards the outer edge of the piece.
Very handy when I'm working on my shop. Fits in my apron very nicely. This is the open-end adjustable wrench of the hand plane family. Bevel up, no frog underneath it. Takes very nice cuts, works great on end grain. And these are real easy to tune up because you don't have a frog to adjust. You actually use the blade to bed it into the body of the plane. Let's see if I got a picture in here somewhere. I'm working on that. Here I'm just drawing across there, but I actually use the blade. I put grinding compound on the back of the blade, and I use the blade in the body of the plane and just work it back and forth. I take everything off of it, work it back and forth until this area across here where the blade lays is absolutely flat all the way across. Eliminates chatter in a hand plane. That's how you deal with bevel up planes. But having one of these on your bench and having a number 4 or a number 3 on your bench, you find uses for them all the time. And they're just hugely fun. Like I say, it's great therapy. It's just fun to be able to do it. Hand planing to that is a good way to get rid of stress. And if you hand plane first, now you got something to sweep up. So you got it both ways. But it's a huge amount of fun. Questions, come on up. And thanks for coming to the shows.
Inside edge is now on the same line. And how far would that be? Exactly the cutting diameter that we wrote down. So we were 128.
Thank you.